Good morning, everybody, and happy Aloha Friday. Welcome to PSG of Mercer County. And PSG of Mercer County is a group that is here for you, anyone who's in any kind of career transition or thinking about entering a career transition, looking to change a job. We are here to try and provide as much information and guidance and programs, education to help you become more efficient and effective in your job search. If you're visiting us for the first time, welcome to PSG of Mercer County. You don't need to wipe your glasses clean. I am indeed wearing a Hawaiian shirt, an Aloha shirt for Aloha Friday, as I do each Friday morning. And in addition, anybody a fan of Popeye? Because if you are, today is actually National Spinach Day. And I didn't find that out until this morning, and I happened to have spinach last night. So I was celebrating a day in advance. So happy National Spinach Day. And as I looked around for other things that were special in this day, it's certainly a coincidence. Don't know if it was done on purpose, but today in history, in 1937, the spinach growers of Crystal City, Texas, erected a statue to Popeye. So I'm not sure if Spinach Day reflects that or that reflects Spinach Day, but that is indeed something that happened. So we get to celebrate National Spinach Day. And yeah, nice vegetable, raw in salads or cook it, lots of things you can do with it. Well, in addition to educating you on the national days or other things about history and having a little fun with Aloha Friday, we do take our group very seriously, and the information that we try to present and make available to all of you. One of the things we do have is our LinkedIn group. It is called PSG of Mercer County. So it is, it's not a hidden group. You can go find it on your own. Some groups are hidden and you need to be invited. In this case, you just search for the group in the group search in LinkedIn, and then search for our name, and you'll see our group. Click on it and click the join button or the join group button. And we will put you first in pending status, and I'll check our attendance records to make sure that you have been to one of our meetings, either in person or virtually at least once, because we're trying to keep out the people that want to join the meeting for only their benefit. And we find that people that are in job search and have been to our meetings at least once understand the real value of helping each other and helping job seekers. So we're trying to keep our membership with those who are only interested in that, and keeping the list collectors and name collectors out. We have over 1,660 members so far. Everyone has been through our meetings or programs at least once. And when you're there, share something. Share an article maybe that you found about job search or updates in the industry, the state of the economy. Share that with us. Just copy and paste the link someplace from someplace into the post. Maybe you've got a job lead for a terrific job. You got an email for a terrific job, but it just doesn't apply to you. You can put that in there as well. Your activity in LinkedIn only helps your profile. So it's another place where you can be active in LinkedIn. We also do have our website. It is psgofmercercounty.org. psgofmercercounty.org. It has over 120 pages of content, so it's a very robust website. It's more than a landing page. And among the things, we do have an event calendar. It's a tab right on top. Our event calendar now is populated through July and into part of August. So we've been being very diligent in keeping our event calendar up to date. So it's a good idea for you once in a while, check our event calendar in case there's a presenter you absolutely want to see or a topic you absolutely want to hear, and then you can make sure that goes into your event calendar. You don't miss that particular Friday. So you're certainly welcome to come here every Friday, but there may be a few topics or presenters you absolutely want to make sure you see. We also have a link on the top called resources, and we have a tremendous number of links to other resources. We have links to 15 other job seeker support networking groups. It's not nearly as robust as the Landing Expert networking list, but it's kind of more regional, close to us. And so you may find that's another place where you can, of course, find other networking groups. We have 26 other career resources, which can be career coaches or some of the state's resources, not just New Jersey, but we've got New York, Pennsylvania, and Delaware as well. So if you're commuting to us digitally from a little bit outside of our area, we have those resources as well. We have even a link to a personal wellness site. We have a mental health site. So if these are things that you want to attend to on your own, at least it could be a starting point for you as well. So go check out our resources tab on our psgofmercercounty.org website. PSG of Mercer County is pleased to welcome Linda Trigano. Linda Trigano, a former corporate recruiter with AT&T, offers career coaching to individuals in transition, as well as those looking to increase their career opportunities within their current positions. Linda offers career coaching focused on preparing you to ace the interview, including the online interview. She also provides unique and focused trauma, grief, and loss coaching to individuals, teams, and managers, helping them to work through periods of loss and transition, including job transition and loss. This unique coaching draws on Linda's experience in human resources, management, and grief facilitation. It addresses sensitive areas such as illness, death, significant change, and loss, and how they impact the organization. The PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome Linda Trigano.
Thank you. I am happy to be here and excited to share some of this information with all of you. Let me tell you, it has a slightly different focus since I do have an HR background and I do have a recruiting background. I know that bringing someone into the organization and keeping them is of paramount importance to companies today, particularly with the pandemic. So with that, let's take a look at some of the things I want to share. And we know, but I want to reiterate that 2020 is a year that has truly left us speechless. The questions become, what has changed and what is needed now? What do you need now in order to land your next job? For the first time, the Oxford Dictionary has not chosen a word of the year describing 2020. They just could not find one word that neatly summarized what was 2020, as we all know. I want to take a little humorous look at, before we begin, at some of the important and less important and more important things that occurred during 2020. So you can see, and many women can attest to the first item on this list. And by the way, I did not create this list. Someone else did, but I found it pretty telling about what we all experienced in 2020. And with that, I want to also give you a quick view into what history students in 2040 are going to be highlighting as what is important. You and I know this. We have lived through it. The question becomes, what's ahead of us as they look at that? You know that 2020 has been defined by change. Unprecedented change that we never, ever experienced before. And I do want to say that the important thing about change is that change is coming. More is coming. It would be prudent for you to focus on the fact that getting comfortable with change, which is not an easy task, is something that can help you as we all move forward into what will become our new normal in 2021. And that is what I want to focus on during this time with you. What should you be focusing on as we go into 2021? Now, I just want to highlight some things that are being brought into the new year are tougher competition. Your competition is now the country, the world. Zoom interviews are here to stay, whether we like them or not. Networking has become even more important. And when you are interviewing, expect different interview questions. I'll highlight many of these things that I have listed here throughout our time today. Ageism, and one note, your willingness or not to work on site may be a deciding factor in whether you land the job or not. For many people, they are not vaccinated And even if they are, they're very concerned about going back physically into the workplace. I want you to think about where you are along that line. Would you go back into the workplace or not? And again, we'll touch on some of this during our time together today, but these are the important things that I think are going to be part of 2021. So here it is. In 2020, job titles and degrees were what hiring managers and recruiters focused on. In 2021, it's all about transferable skills, certifications, and finally, I've been talking about them for years, soft skills have come into front and center of the important scale. Now, let me just say that I'm not saying that your degrees are not going to be something that is important. It's just that many companies now are looking at what are your transferable skills? What skills do you have that you can take to my job and help me with my problems? Certifications reflect what you're doing today, how you're keeping those skills up, and your soft skills are something that many people don't incorporate in their talk, in their interviewing explanation about their skills. So let's talk about a few of those. Soft skills, according to LinkedIn hiring managers, more than half hiring managers are saying they are having trouble finding the right soft skills. So the question I have for you, and I'm going to repeat it frequently throughout this talk, is how are you in your interviewing demonstrating that you have soft skills? And remember, it's not enough to say, I can communicate well. How are you demonstrating that? I want you to think, and actually I hope that you take that as an action item after this time together with me, as an item that you need to think about and maybe begin to incorporate some of the things I'm going to help you with today into your interview process. I've looked at many, many different areas of soft skills from an HR perspective, from a recruiting, from a career coach perspective. And I can tell you that these four things show up time and time again. They are not the only soft skills, but they are the soft skills that show up consistently. And I can say further, creativity is almost always the top skill that somebody is looking for when they're interviewing. So, how do you demonstrate that you have creativity? How do you do that? What have you done in the last year to demonstrate your creativity? And that just doesn't mean from an artsy perspective. How are you create? Remember, the speed of change is so fast today that creating new ways of doing and being have become almost commonplace. They are a top demand in jobs today. What in your profession, in your skill set, demonstrates that? Resilience, if the last year has taught us nothing, it has taught us how to be resilient. How are you demonstrating that? What did you do that shows that? Adaptability. Think about the companies that went almost overnight from in-person to virtual and how they had to adapt their workforce. That speaks about companies that implemented different ways of doing business, and it also required that they teach their workforce how to adapt to the new way, how to be as effective. And collaboration has always been important, right? We've all been on different teams, but when you're talking about a virtual environment, how do you collaborate? How do you show a hiring manager that you have a good handle on how you collaborate? Remember, I want you to take these ideas and after this time with me, think about them. Think about what and how you have demonstrated them. Here's another look at a little different view of soft skills. I think, and I can tell you from an HR perspective, that continuous learning is something that every hiring manager, if they have not already incorporated that, will want to. And even if they are not asking that question, you are, it would behoove you to include your ability to continuously learn new skills to adapt to new processes, because that's what's happening in companies today. Time management has never been more important than in a virtual environment where you might be hired and never meet your boss or never be on site. Can you demonstrate that that's a skill you have, so that if I hire you, I know, I am convinced that you will be able to manage your time and balance your workload with your family needs, with your personal needs? Will you be able to get my projects done without me looking over your shoulder? That's a time management issue, and that should be incorporated in your interviewing. And emotional intelligence. For years, many companies, large companies in particular, have been talking about emotional intelligence, and that gets to your personal skills. And I'm going to show you what emotional intelligence entails. But I want to just briefly say here, these are your personal skills that should be infused in all of your examples. Remember, you're hired for technical skills, but nowadays they're looking at your soft skills and how you manage these pieces of what's on the screen right now. That's your personal responsibility. So emotional intelligence, here it's sometimes called EQ. You can see the IQ is your technical knowledge, your know-how, your critical thinking, how you do your job. But it is the EQ side that has now become as important because of the people management in a virtual environment. Empathy. Managers that haven't had empathy in the last year through this pandemic are now seeing the results of that, because there is an exodus from companies has begun even during this time of difficult job search, because of some managers' lack of EQ skills and being sensitive and aware and able to manage through some of those difficult times. So these are important skills for you to have. Now, let me just take a moment here, because I want to say, I am in no way saying that in an interview you need to hit on every single one of these things that I'm talking about. But the more you're able to show that human side of you, the more you're able to connect, which again is more difficult in a virtual environment, the better you're going to put yourself in a good light and maybe very well stand out from the crowd, and be a little more desirable for that position compared to those you might be interviewing against. So
Me,
in
Linda?
2020?
Yep, we have a question.
Sure.
So this is typed in, it's from Tatiana. How do you demonstrate emotional intelligence? I never heard that a company would look into it.
Well, it certainly is. The way that I would say that is just acknowledging what you have done over the last year. So, for example, if you had to learn how to balance work life and home life and work responsibilities. So in an interview, I might want to hear you say, I became aware of just how delicate the balance was for me personally to balance those two parts of my life. And I know that, working with others, they have different responsibilities. And, as somebody that would work with a team, I would, the virus has made me very aware of the need to pay attention to other people and their responsibilities or the requirements on them. So let me, rather than let me give you an example a real life example. I ran into somebody who's a professor. I was at a personal family event, and she was a professor at a college. And I was saying to her, oh, yeah, teachers have had to move online, something they've never done before. She said, oh, yeah, it's much harder for me to do this online, to do teaching online. And I said, really? Why is that? She said, and this is an EQ answer, by the way, without her even knowing that, she said to me, well, the fact is that in the past, I would give an assignment, I would give a due date, and that would be it. I'd expect everybody to be done. But in this environment, I have to be aware of family responsibilities. I have some people that have children that just can't devote them. Do you see how she answered that? Her awareness of the fact that other people might have different pressures on them. And she responded to that. And she did adjust the work time. So the time for somebody to hand in a presentation or a work assignment. That's a great answer for EQ. So for each of you, it could be different. You've learned different things. You've managed different people. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you. We have another question from Chi Wen. The change from 2020 to 2021 in terms of skills, etc., is that based on a survey or observation or other sources?
Well, it's based on a lot of research that I have done, and I can tell you that it is, I am referencing some news articles. I'm referencing a number of HR studies that have talked about these particular skills sets. I have turned these thoughts into how it can best help a job seeker, but they are talking about all aspects of HR, all aspects of people management within a company. So yes, it is from a lot of different sources.
Great, thank you very much.
So with no other questions, let me just say that in 2020, the question might have been, tell me about yourself. In 2021, it's tell me about yourself and your COVID-19 story. And that means that each of us have lived through this last year, and we have a story. For some of you, that might have been you were laid off. For some of you, you might have adjusted your coaching with individuals to incorporate how are you dealing with this particular historical event? What are you doing with yourself? What have you learned? How has this impacted you? Those kind of things are going to make a difference in how you answer that question. We know it's impacted us in ways unimaginable. I can't not mention at this point the value proposition. I have seen many presentations on a value proposition, and I can say that each and every one of them has been right on target. As a job seeker, as an employee, you need to understand and be able to articulate your value to an organization. That is not up to the organization, it's up to you. And I can say, you need to answer, who are you? What do you do? And in a way that is clear and succinct and understandable by most people, if not all people that hear you. And I know that this one bullet point here is a big challenge. I encourage you to continually polish and hone your answer here because it will make you memorable. The other piece of this is you're not the only person who does what you do. What about you would make me as a hiring manager think you're the person that I want to hire and have on my team? I'm giving you lots of ways to incorporate skills that many people aren't speaking about. That could in itself cause you to stand above other candidates. But for me, as somebody who sits in the crux of three different areas, I can say to you that being able to verbalize your answers is a key component of this, and many people don't do that well. A pet peeve of mine is many people that do it so often, they actually come across as sing-song. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be boring. You don't want to be too verbose. You want to be clear, concise, and interesting. Not an easy challenge to do, but I encourage you to practice that. And here's one way to practice it. In some of my research, I have found time and time again the art of storytelling as one of the things that can help you do good on the job, perform well on the job, as well as land the job. You know, the fact is, as individuals, we all bring to the table, if you will, who we are. Our life stories matter. You know, if I were to share some aspects of my life with you, I think you would be surprised, maybe interested in where I have been and where I am today. I don't think in any way that I am unique in that. I think each of you hearing me at the moment are as unique and interesting as the next person. It is this art of storytelling. And, you know, at the PSG of Morris County, they just had an excellent speaker on who talked about storytelling, about how to make your story interesting. I encourage you to incorporate some of what he indicated in that particular talk. And if you didn't hear it, go back and look up, research the art of storytelling, because that is one of the pieces that can set you apart in job search. So here's my natural stop for questions and see if there are any more. If not, I'll move on.
Okay, so if you have a question at this point, Belinda, so it's nice we've got an intermission point, you could just type question in chat right now. That's kind of the digital equivalent of raising your hand, or as some people had done already, you could actually just type the question in. But I ask, put the word question in front of it so it stands out to me as I see all these other comments as well. So here's one coming from Chi Wen. Any suggestions on networking if you cannot meet with people as usual?
I do, and I actually have a slide or two coming up about that. So if we could just hold that, because I believe networking has become more important in the virtual world. So yes.
Okay, so good. We will sit tight and wait for that. And Pramod has a question. Any tips for Zoom interviewing?
Yes, I again feel there is so much information out there. Johnny, I believe his name is Johnny Walker Jr., who's head of SHRM, has in SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management. And again, I have an HR focus. He indicates that, first of all, as we all know, Zoom interviews are here to stay. And here's his advice, and this is from the top guy at who sits above all HR for the country, maybe even the world. Anyway, his advice: not everybody's good at interviewing online. He says his advice: get good at it. Period. So I say, you know, beside lighting and sound and what sits behind you, all of those things have been talked about a lot. And listen, I have worked with clients to help them interview well. That to me is one of the hallmarks. Get with someone, whether it's a career coach, a good friend who can be honest, and practice. I have spent months trying to get my lighting correct. I have spent months trying to get how close I am to the camera. And, you know, I'm not new to this. I was using Zoom before last year. but it takes time to be able to speak to the little light at the top of your computer as opposed to anything else. In an interview, you might want to look at the person. How do you manage that? The succinct answer in the middle of this presentation is practice. Get your surroundings, your sound, your lighting, all perfect, and then practice, practice, practice.
Terrific, thank you. And there's a question from Joanne. Can you just restate the art of storytelling reference?
Yeah, I know, John, I know that you're, John Sampson, I know you're on the call. If you could just type in that man's name, the presenter, in the chat for me, that would help, I think. Okay.
Okay, very good. That's
Okay,
it for questions. Yeah, so let's move on.
okay. So, oh my goodness, get back here. Okay, so in 2020, the discussion might have been about diversity and inclusion. And I'm talking about when you're sitting in front of HR, when you're sitting in front of an interviewer, hiring manager. But this year, it's going to be about commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you are not familiar with those terms, the president of HR, Johnny Walker Jr., I don't know why it came into my head, is this piece here could be the secret to getting hired, because many companies have committed to these 3 items. There has been a lot of talk in HR circles about we're committed, we've discussed it, but now there's this commitment behind it. And if you are thinking about it and speaking about it, you could once again stand out above others. And let me talk a little bit about what each one of those is. Diversity is people and their perspectives, and having everybody acknowledge that there are differences and differences are good. Equity, everyone's voice is being heard, considered, and treated fairly. And inclusion, an environment that creates respect and value. All people, regardless of where they sit in the organization. These 3 items, if you are incorporating that into how you speak about yourself, and certainly diversity, how many teams have you been on that might have had people, and diversity is ethnicity, it is age, it is gay individuals, it is veterans, it is age. There are many ways, culturally, many ways to be diverse and to be on a diverse team. Are you speaking about that? How do you, as somebody who works with a team, ensure that everybody's voice on the team is heard? Those kind of discussions, and maybe questioning a company about where they sit in regard to this might be something, as the president of SHRM says, that sets you apart from the other people. Knowing about a company's culture and what they're committed to is of a big importance today. And I can tell you that the millennial generation has moved many of these things into a much more important spot in the HR hierarchy than before. For millennials, it is of utmost importance what a company is committed to, as one way to show that you too share that. Do you share a company's values? Are you speaking about that? Are you asking about that in an interview? A company's culture and values. You know, you bring your values to the team. You bring your values to a company. Here's some ways that you can find out about a company's culture, about their values. You want to do research about the company you're hiring with. You know, on one of the recent think it might have been yesterday, I was on a call where they were talking about company culture and that it was so important for somebody interviewing to ask about that. You know, a company wants to know if you're going to be a good fit. Are you going to fit into my organization? One of the ways is to know about my culture and about what I value as a company. But I also want to know what you value. Are you incorporating that into how you interview? So you want to tap into your network, ask the recruiter for information, read objectives and news articles. You know, when I was with AT&T early on, I was in their sales department. I sold network services for them. And there was a lot of turnover because the sales job was not an easy one. And one of the hiring managers, the sales manager for a different team than what I was on, it was interviewing. And she asked me if I would speak to the interviewee. And again, I would have been a peer of hers. I was not in an HR capacity. And I actually said to her, "Are you sure you want me to do that?" You know, I knew the culture was really tough, that the job was tough. And she said to me, "I absolutely want you to talk with her, and I want you to be honest. I want her to know the environment before I hire her." Isn't that what managers want? They want to know if you're going to be a good fit with them before they hire you. As a hiring manager, I can attest to the fact that I do not want to hire you and let you go in a few months because you don't fit into my company culture or my values. So learning about them ahead of time is an extremely important piece. The president of SHRM has said that this could be the secret for getting you hired. He advises for you to talk about it in an interview, to ask questions about the company culture, and he also says to find ways to put it into a thank you letter that you might send later on. Great tips from somebody from an HR focus, if you ask me. And remember, all through this presentation, I'm asking you, how are you incorporating these things today? And if you're not doing them, how will you do them in the future so that you shine? So in
Excuse me, Linda.
2020, yeah.
Yep, we've got a question from Chi Wen. Companies have been talking about diversity, equity, inclusion for years. Is this still paying lip service, or are they serious about this?
Well, and that question has been posed to HR in a lot of different ways. I can tell you that many, many more companies have stepped up to not just doing lip service, but to actually taking action, putting money behind the effort. The last year, with many of the social justice events that occurred throughout 2020, have changed the mindset of HR individuals and companies. Are all companies 100% committed? That would be really utopia. But are many, many more stepping up to this challenge, to taking a look at including all three of these pieces? The culture is definitely changing. Yes. More than lip service now, yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay to go on?
Yes, yep, thank you.
Okay. So in 2020, the question might have been posed to you, are you willing to relocate? And I just want to take a moment here and talk about relocation, because relocation is not just about the company asking you. You as an individual, having lived through 2020, may see relocation as your choice. You may be financially strapped. You may decide that it is in your family's best interest to move to another part of the country. So I want you to, when you think about relocation, to think about it from your own perspective as well as a company. And in a virtual environment, I can tell you that the question will now be, how will you work across time zones? That becomes a very relevant, pertinent question for you to be able to answer. And here's what it's going to look like. You might work with somebody on the opposite coast from where you live. You might work with somebody in a different country. I am on a few different teams. And one of the recent teams that I've joined, the one individual lives in Las Vegas. And I can tell you that I have had to alter my own work schedule, how I am able to connect with her in order to conduct the business that we need to do. That is a great example of what you might talk about in an interview. How have you managed different time zones? How do you work across the virtual environment? Is there a better time of day for you? But what if you're on a team that has 2 or 3 different time zones? Remember the soft skills that I talked about? Are you flexible? Are you creative enough to manage this piece? Because quite frankly, jobs span the entire globe now. The virtual environment has pushed that into a global hiring. It's a skill we all need to have. Do you demonstrate that? Have you ever done that? Can you talk about that experience in an interview? In 2020, a hiring manager might have asked you about your video conferencing experience, but in 2021, they're going to want to know how adept you are at tech. How adept are you? And again, the question is, how do you demonstrate that? So here's some of the things that I believe are important in this tech world. How quickly do you adopt technology? Tell me how you do it. What have you learned in the last year? Remember that question from early on? How adept you are you at acquiring the skills needed for technology? The speed of change is not going to slow down, and technology in particular is not getting any slower. If anything, it'll get quicker. With AI and virtual worlds and all the things that go with it, smart technology, smart appliances, every single impact on our lives, you're going to adopt, whether you are sitting here thinking that you will or not. I encourage you to think about all that you have adopted in the last, 5 years. It is an astounding list of how we have gotten familiar with technology. Do you use a variety of tech tools, in hiring and in business? They are moving to a virtual environment. They're going to interview you with artificial intelligence. There is virtual reality already on the market that can assess your soft skills, something that hasn't been done before. Automation is increasing in every single area of life. I can't list anywhere that I don't think it is. And the last bullet, how quickly do you acquire new skills? And it's not just, I can do that, I can do that. It is demonstrate for me how you've done it. When I was actively hiring for AT&T, one of the adages we frequently used was the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And that gets into tell me about a time, right? Tell me about a time you did this. But use that inside hiring information to blend that into what you're talking about with your tech skills. I believe that this particular slide is of utmost importance in today's world, especially in the virtual world, and your ability to demonstrate your expertise in many of these areas. In 1999 and 2020, you might have been called in for multiple in-person interviews, but in 2021, you're going to be screened by AI. Artificial intelligence. And I can tell you, I've heard many people say, I wouldn't work for a company that interviewed that way. Well, guess what? A few years back, you weren't going to talk to companies that used software that filtered your resume. You weren't going to do a lot of things that you're doing today. Get good at artificial intelligent interviewing. That means being comfortable on camera. That means maybe speaking to a bot that looks human. Many of them are so good today that you actually might think you're talking to a real person, but you're not. Here's what's changed in the face of automating recruiting. So think about years ago, you had a paper resume. Now I don't think anybody even takes paper resumes, or they don't read them, especially after being out of the office for a year, no one ever sees them. Networking, you might have been in person. Today, it's all about social media sites and hanging out in online hangouts. You might have gone to a job fair. Now they have virtual job fairs. There's a very big difference between those two. Get good at virtual job fairs. You might have had a paper resume. You have an online profile now. You interviewed face to face. Right now, you interview on video. And I can tell you that you do not know if you're being interviewed by one person or you're being recorded, and many people will see your interview. So you want to be good at it. You want to be comfortable with it. These are just the changes that have already happened, never mind what will happen in the future.
Excuse
Let me
me,
just
Linda, there's a
say,
question.
sure. Oh, get
This
back
is
here.
ta-da.
Yeah.
There you go. So this is from Nell. I had to take a number of online tests before I was allowed to speak to a human being at a firm. Do you have any advice on how to tackle that process or better prepare? A lot of it was conceptual / behavioral questions.
Yeah, in some cases, there's no way to prepare for that. And the reason is you don't know what they're going to be asking you. You could certainly try to get some information from the person who has set that up for you to interview. They may or may not give you that aspect or give you insight into what's in there. I can tell you there are many different systems, so even getting prepared for one doesn't mean you will be prepared for a different type of system. What I can tell you, though, is of all the things that I've been talking about, storytelling, for example, comes down to your pars and cars or stars, whatever you want to call them. But I'm actually taking you a step deeper and infusing in there some of the soft skills, some of the technology aspects. If you do that and you practice that and you get comfortable with expressing yourself in those ways, I think that you will do, I believe that one would do well in a virtual interviewing environment, whether it's by AI or even an online in person. It's the fact that many people are not prepared well enough. If you prepare on the things I just mentioned, I think the other piece is your personality and being comfortable with who you are, the skills you bring to the job, your values, your culture, all of that shows up in those interviews. So being comfortable with who you are. Remember, I believe from my own perspective that each of us is important and has some intrinsic value. I think that shows through, but it's a matter of being comfortable with yourself and being real. Being real. They're hiring a real person. Being real, even if it's AI, will have a great impact, my opinion.
Great, thank you.
Okay to go on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, a little bit more. So you might have seen this, but it bears saying again and again, the favorite radio station for hiring managers is with them. What's in it for me? It's the only one they listen to, the only one they care about. Know what issues they're working on and talk about how your skills and knowledge help them. Anything else, Doesn't matter to a hiring manager, but all of your skills, your expertise, your knowledge, your soft skills, all wrap around what you can do for a hiring manager. And here's a few final points that I want to make. I believe these three things are something you need to incorporate in your interviewing. How you constantly learn, how adaptable and flexible you are, and how tech savvy you are. And overlaying all that, I want to know how resilient you are. I want to know, if you worked for me in 2020, would I have had to drag you through the changes, kicking and screaming, or would you have been the employee that stood up and said, hey, you know, I have a better way of doing this. Let me show you how I think we might benefit from doing X, Y, and Z. Which employee are you? Which employee are you representing when you interview? I believe these three things overlaid with resilience is an excellent roadmap for you in the interviewing process. Oh, come back here, Sarah. This is Sarah Johnson. Sarah Kennedy, excuse me. Sarah is a voiceover actor from Australia. I found her on LinkedIn when I was surfing around one day, and here's all the things that Sarah put together about herself. And I wrote to Sarah and I'm like, ooh, I think this has application for job seekers. Can I use your picture, Sarah? She was happy. Here's what I want you to do. Take a look at what Sarah says about herself. Take Sarah's picture out of this and put yours in place. What would you put around your own picture that a hiring manager might be interested in? What things could you say about yourself? It's an exercise in getting better at representing who you actually are. Thank you, Sarah. We have this one. I'm going the wrong way, guys. Up, 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 up. Come back here, you PowerPoint, you. Okay, so as I wrap up here, I want to just say my opinion as a career coach is these are the things I'd like to see you focus on each day. Focus a little bit on your online image, resume, cover letter, a little bit of time each day, research and learning, connecting with your network, and attending online events. I'd like to see you, the career coaching side of me would like to see you balance these things. Maybe you won't hit on all of them every day, but these are the important things that I think can move you forward. Let's talk about the networking piece that someone had a question about before. And networking has never been more important than it is right now. And quite frankly, I think it's not been as difficult for some people to transition over to this virtual world of networking. Relationship building takes time, but you can build them online, but you really have to nurture those relationships. You can't just, networking is a give to get. It is not just about getting. I imagine you've heard that many times before, but I still see many people only looking to get something from networking. And, you know, I know that networking takes a lot of time. You need to balance it. I struggle with this myself each and every day. I encourage you to try to find that balance, but networking is the best way to find a job. It has consistently, year over year, been the #1 way to find and land a new job. So don't neglect this piece. Make sure that you're devoting enough time to it, but not so much that it overwhelms you. And social media, the various sites are a great tool for you to use. Just don't get so taken in by every new bright, shiny object that is on social media that you get distracted. Stick to a few that you enjoy, that you're good at, that you can meet like-minded people who may be able to help you in your job search and who you can help in your job search. And Alice, let me just sum it up. Alice had the best answer. You know, she said that she knew who she was when she got up in the morning, but she must have changed several times since then. And that is just a great analogy for how we are. We are changing so many times, maybe not in a day, but in a week and a month, that it could be exhausting. I encourage you to slow down, to speed up. the points I've given you here, I firmly believe can help you in your job search to the point of making you stand out from the crowd. If I can help you in any way, please connect to me. I am more than happy to give you advice. I encourage you to connect to me on LinkedIn. I have worked to limit some of my time on LinkedIn just based on what I just shared with you. As I work on other projects, I know the value, but I also know that I need to manage my time. I want to thank you all for being with me, and I hope that you take the challenge of thinking about what I've talked about and really incorporating it into how you speak about your skills and your expertise. Back to you.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up officially, any questions that you have, now would be a good time to ask Linda, at least in this form. Of course, she's got her contact information if you prefer to speak with her privately or more personally, but now would be a good time. You know, I really liked, and from that networking perspective, and I put a comment in chat, but I'll just kind of read it out loud. Forbes magazine recently posted up to 70% of open positions. 70% of open positions are not posted. So you won't find them online. So if you're spending your time online, you'll miss 70%. And that really supports Linda's comment about networking. Because if you know a few more people, some of those people may have positions that they have not yet posted. And so that's one reason why networking is so powerful and important.
Linda, it's John Sampson. Thank you for this morning. I wondered about when you were talking about practicing, does that suggest you take every interview you can get?
I am a big believer in that, John. First of all, interviews are hard to come by today, aren't they? I wouldn't turn one down, that's for sure. So yes, the answer is short and succinct. Yes, take every interview you can in order to practice. And my other advice following that is, after the interview, I would immediately write down what I think went well and what I think I can improve, what answers I could have been better at, so that I can be even more polished for the next interview.
You know, other ways you can do that, certainly work with a coach who's trained at interviewing, and so that could be helpful. You might appreciate a single session or two. You can also work with a friend, not a very good friend or a parent, but someone who you know a bit professionally, who can kind of critique you more objectively. You can practice that way. There's actually an IO or an AI type product. It's called MrSimon.io. You can check that website. It has lists of questions that different types of hiring managers in different industries might actually ask you. So you might do a little research on MrSimon.io to see if there's some practice you can do there. So lots of places you can get practice.
And let me just say that practice is not answering questions in your head or not practicing with yourself. It is practicing in front of somebody else so that you can get some feedback. When we practice in our head, it is much different than how we answer verbally.
Sure. Here's a question from Nell. If you had a job presented that does not even come close to your background, how do you say no while also telling them that you're grateful to be considered and keeping the conversation going?
Well, my question would be, how did you end up getting a view into a job or an offer to interview for a job that you are not a match for? And I would think being clear, you know, while I love the opportunity to work for XYZ company, you know, can we go through the job requirements? You know, I'd like to make sure from my perspective, as well as yours, Mr. Hiring Manager, whether I would be a fit for you. You know, as I said, I'm very interested in working for this company and want to make sure that I'm in a position that would be a great fit for both of us. You know, I don't think I would interview for something. I have verbal skills. I'm a coach, right? I do a career and I do trauma skills. I help individuals speak better about themselves and about events. If somebody tried to hire me for IT, I mean, I'd be a little leery about their request. And I wouldn't jump at interviewing for that.
Okay. Okay, terrific. And actually, I got a correction from one of our members. Mr. Simon is actually mrsimon.ai, not IO. So thank you for correcting that. But take a look at that if you're interested. Well, looks like all the questions have run their course. And I just want to say, I heard so many good and wonderful and interesting comments right from the beginning. You said change is coming and we have to get comfortable with it. And I really started thinking, as we get older, I think it's human nature, we become less comfortable, less tolerant with change. We kind of like to ride things out. But you're really talking about disruptions in the marketplace, and we really need to be comfortable or acceptable that they're there and adjust to them accordingly. And I thought it was really important to kind of just let us know that. And also, yeah, oh, sorry.
When I was at AT&T, one of the jobs that I held after HR was I managed the content on the website, AT&T WorldNet. And I was responsible for looking at what was new on the horizon and then making a play for that to my manager. And I remember so clearly, one of the things that was so up and coming, and we're talking about like maybe 2000, right? We're only 20 years away from that. But one of the things was a company called onmoney.com. And they were proposing that we did online banking. So you'd have a wallet where you would manage your money online. It was such a bomb. The manager wouldn't even consider that might be something viable, right? Fast forward 20 years later, when we are, I don't know how many on this call are doing online banking, but geez, it is just such a common occurrence today, between Venmo and all of the PayPal way to pay things. It would be unthinkable to turn down that nowadays. So when you're thinking about change, it might be something that, you resist in the beginning. But man, and we are incorporating change on a much faster pace than they did in 2020 because of all the technology. It's just a view into how long it took to make a mindset change to today, how long it takes. Very short timeline to change a mindset on a particular way. Yeah.
Sure. And another point you brought up early on, you talked about the importance of bringing out your soft skills. The transferable skills, and you talked about that. And one thing I began to think about was hard skills, kind of the tools of the job. They can become obsolete. They can become obsolete because the company that you left never kept their skills current, which meant they weren't able to train you in what's current in the marketplace now. Or you've been out of work for over 6 months or close to a year, and skills are starting to change. But soft skills never go out of style. So I think it was very important and relevant that you brought that up, the importance of transferable skills. So thank you for that as well.
Sure thing.
Yeah. All right. So, well, Linda, once again, thank you so much. We appreciate so much you being here today. I know you've been a part of our group for a while virtually, and that's been, we're very appreciative of that as well. So glad you could present and be on the other side of the microphone. So, but folks, just as we wrap up, want to let you know, next week we will be right back here. Next week will be Good Friday, and we will have a meeting, 10 o'clock in the morning. Lynn Williams will be here, Strategic Research-Based Approach to LinkedIn. Lynn Williams is someone who is just dug in deep into LinkedIn. She does research on all of her presentations, as a lot of presenters do. So she's going to talk about the research that supports her recommendations for how we should best use LinkedIn. Next week, April 2nd. April 9th, the following week, Glenn Posh will also be back, and how to stay motivated, especially when you don't feel like it. And that's what Glenn will be talking about. He is such a fun gentleman to listen to, and I think we'll all enjoy that program as well. Also, other programs during the week. Each week, New Jersey Job Seekers meets each Tuesday evening at 7:30 in the evening, and so you're welcome to visit New Jersey Job Seekers virtually. I did post the connection information in our LinkedIn group, so go visit our LinkedIn group. I posted it again yesterday. They use the same connection info each week. If I can a little later, I'll put it in chat. New Jersey Job Seekers is the oldest continuously running job seeker support group in the country, and they meet now each Tuesday evening at 7:30. And our lovely cousin organizations, PSG of Morris County, psgmc.org, psgmc.org, meets each Wednesday morning at 9:30 in the morning, and so you can check them out. As well as PSG of Central New Jersey, they meet each Monday at 10:30, psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz. So that's what's coming up on the Job Seeker Support Horizon. So once again, thank you to Linda. Glad so many of you were able to hang around with us, and are letting you know that we are keeping this meeting session open for the next half hour, 45 minutes or so. I will turn the recording off, but it is our way to continue our virtual networking. So Linda talked a little bit about the importance of networking, and so we can do a little bit of it virtually. And so, but until we get to see you again next week or anywhere else virtually, I will be happy just to say bye, everybody.